Oh boy, it's 105, guys. It's episode 105.
Yeah, I don't like playing on other people's sandbox, and poor guy last week, I can't remember his name. I don't mean to be stepping on your toes. It's 105.
It's yes, it's 105. Again, um, we had a little bit of some technical difficulties when we did the start. I've had streaming technical difficulties all day. If you've been watched the little gaming stream I did earlier, so I'm trying to sort it out. You know, how it comes with new updates to your streaming software. So, but I'm glad. I'm glad to have you here, sir, especially for this week's
Yeah.
script. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, and I'm glad you invited me. This should be a blast.
I
I
am.
get the good ones most of the time. I get the good ones.
You are a good luck charm in that regards. I mean, rarely can I think of a double pass that we've done. Because it's been, I think it's maybe the 51st episode and the 62nd episode were both double passes, but pretty much almost everything else has been green light.
Right.
That's a pretty
We're
good
not trying to
ratio.
give away. Yeah, let's not give away how we feel about episode 105.
Yeah, that's that's gonna be something. Um, but yeah, we have a pretty interesting one to discuss today, and I'm glad that you're here for it because um, I like comedies, and I always appreciate when someone is trying to do a comedy because putting comedy on paper doesn't always translate as well as an actual performance, seeing a performance.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, you know, if you can showcase some skills where you can overcome that barrier, that's a good one. And I'm getting confirmation here that we're coming through 5x5, which is great. And yes, so it's the end of the month, so it's already been 31 days of 26, and lots happened.
Right. Right.
So hopefully we can provide some interesting commentary and levity to all the goings-ons out here for everyone tuning in tonight. I hope you have a good start to the weekend, and hope it ends up ending on a great part before you have to head into wherever you head into on Mondays. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs discussing scripts, both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I am your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me this week, the one, the only, the epic Adega. How you doing, sir?
It's the first time I think I've been called epic. Lots of names, some of them good, but epic is new.
It's a good
I'm doing
adjective.
great. I always wonderful to be here, so I'm doing fabulous. Thanks for the invite.
I listen. I love being able to get you. I know you have a busy schedule with a lot of responsibilities, so I'm happy to be able to get you when I can. I mean, again, it's also great to talk to someone who's a writer themselves, gives two different perspectives.
Might try.
It helps out because I like the variety, because we have some writers here, we've got general commentators, we have average Joe audience members. It really does spice up the conversation and gives a variety of perspectives on the types of scripts we review, and it really allows for a very fun show. And this week's script is
Oh my.
is one that I'm hoping resonates with our audience and also with other people that have read it. It is called Camp David. It placed 61st on the 2024 blacklist with only 10 votes. It is written by Megan Amram and Joseph Carnegie, and the logline is as follows. In 1981, a young George W. Bush and his siblings are hunted by a masked killer while partying at Camp David, which already in itself sounds crazy. Adega, please share with us the synopsis for Camp David.
All right. After losing a tough election and spiraling into depression, a young George W. Bush sneaks away with his brothers for a ruckus off the books 4th of July party at Camp David, complete with bikinis, beer, and fireworks. But their hedonist celebration awakens a relentless, murderous force stalking the historic grounds. Desperate to survive the night, the Bush siblings battle the terror while gradually uncovering a shocking, long-buried government secret that threatens to rewrite everything they thought they knew.
Okay. So this this script starts off quite strong. I was rather shocked by this. Like it does not waste time trying to get into the jokes.
Right.
So let's start with the first impressions right off. We start the script in 1978. We're at Camp David. We've got a fictional secretary named Walter Phelps, who's there with President Jimmy Carter, and they're opposite some dignitaries. And then, of course, there's a translator named Elise, who's in her 40s, and she's got a Mina descent, but she is American. And what were your first impressions of this dynamic? Because it seems it's presented as a very formal, serious assembly of these political figures. And how do they parse it?
I'm an old fart, so knowing what Jimmy Carter was like, knowing the history of Camp David to a little degree, and the politics at the time, and then seeing this and the interpreter being misquoted or whoever it was, Phelps trying to say something and being corrected, I thought, I hate Carter. I hate the politics of the time. I hated a lot of these people. And it's good that they start picking on each other. And then, and then the interpreter and the guy run off, and I'm thinking, well, okay, this looks like it's going to be a lot funner than I thought. It just, the situational comedy right away, even with before the real comedy started setting in, because I thought the title itself, Camp David, it didn't grab me. But when whoever's writing the humor, I noticed it was just the situation itself, not the actual acts, performance, words, what have you. It was comical. And I thought, yeah, I think it didn't take me very long to realize I'm going to like this. The other one, the satire one, which I didn't catch with satire at first, was difficult. There was a couple others that we did that were funny that it took a little bit longer for me to sit in. But, knowing politics and everything, I thought, okay, I'm going to enjoy this despite myself.
I will say they use the politicians to do a lot of the heavy lifting on frame of references and behaviors, because they're culturally important enough and they're able to exploit that. Now, fun fact about Jimmy Carter. So Canadians have a very mixed perspective of him, because Jimmy Carter ended up deactivating a nuclear power plant that had most likely would have melted down. And he did so without going in with any type of protection suit or anything. He just kind of went in there and did it and saved millions of people in the area. So Canada likes him for that. But we very much acknowledge a lot of the mistakes he did whilst in office, and some internationally, especially if you're familiar with this thing called Jonestown. So we're very mixed on the guy, because he saved a lot of people, at this time from this nuclear disaster in Canada. And yet, everything else that came out to it. The other part, too, that we also kind of have to tip our hats to, because it's the only major smart thing he did on the international stage, was that he made the necessary arrangements to allow the Canadians in the Iranian embassy to protect the Americans that were trapped over there, and then smuggle them out of the country. He kept that secret. He didn't do anything to push, political agenda or what have you that would compromise the lives of those American citizens trapped overseas. So, when our country rescued them to get them back over, it was the plan that he approved in order to do it. It was a high risk plan. But yeah, I will say this: he has a couple of points in his favor, and he has a couple of points very much against him.
My biggest thing, Carter, is, like you said, good and bad. Well, for most of what I remember was bad, but there was one hilarious thing when he had the killer bunny attack him in a canoe. I will never forget that.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be a true story too. That's
I
not
know.
comedy. He had a killer bunny get in the water and chase him in a canoe.
Yes,
anyway.
I've heard that story. I'm like, it's something straight out of Monty Python, and yet that is the case. So yes, this script, it really jumps into the comedy right away. The first thing it does is actually Jimmy Carter does not speak at all in his opening scene. He's just there,
Nope.
seated in a rocking chair. There's definitely a visual joke you could throw in here, but then we have like Walter Phelps, who's he's conducting the end of the meeting, and then he mispronounces Asaluma Alekium. He says like Salham Alekum.
Right.
And of course, at least the translator corrects him. They disperse, and then Elise enters her residency at Cedar Cabin. And then, just like out of a horror movie, you've got this thing like, oh, there's a shadowy figure that's kind of creeping around, and it comes up behind her, and she screams, and it's just Walter Phelps. And we find out that these two are in an illicit relationship, where he's there for the Egyptian lessons, and he's talking about how much of he's a pervert, and that she's sleeping with the enemy.
Yeah, we call this international diplomacy.
International diplomacy, and he does a lot of stuff. Like, he talks about some various types of sexual techniques that are used mostly in just adult films, and Elise is going with it, and it's very much like it's the teenagers at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yep.
And it's just being said by these two over-the-hill adults. And the contrast is really quite, like, it's very visceral, because in one part you're like, I can't believe, a 40-year-old woman and a 60-year-old man in 1978 would be talking this way, but at the same time it's like, oh, it's a politician.
Right.
And they have they are known to have some very dirty mouths and minds, and criminal activity. So
The only thing is back then, and I gave it a pass because it's comedy, we didn't quite use the same language. We said there was dirty things that were said, but they said them a different way. And the authors aren't going to know that.
yeah, because I will say the lexicon between the 70s and today has minor differences, but overall it's very much the same, but it does have some minor differences. There are certain slang or terms that have just faded with time, but
Not just me being picky.
No, but it's perfectly valid, because this is one of the things that I've had to remind clients who reach out to me for like advice, and also assignment work as well, when they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do something that's going to take place in the 1960s. How did they talk back then? It's like, well, there's thousands of hours of television and radio interviews and things of how people talked by that back then, and instead of listening or trying to get a feel for it, they just kind of speculate what it's like, and they just think it's a slightly more formalized version of contemporary English, and it's not.
Right.
But there's something very universal about it in general, where you can watch an I Love Lucy episode, or The Honeymooners, or All in the Family, or Columbo, and you're completely and totally informed about what's going on, because they're using the core root of the language of the decade with a couple of flares of what sets it to its setting, but it's not incomprehensible. It's not so outrageous. Whereas you do the reverse, right? You take a bunch of terminology that has popped up over the last 5 years, and you try to, if you could go back in time and show that to someone in any of those decades, 50s, 60s, or 70s, they would look at you like you're speaking a foreign language.
Right, because back in the 70s, if someone said they're going to drop a load on you, you would think, well, are you talking drama that you're involved with? Are you talking dumping a truck? Are you throwing your backpack on me? And back then, if you said throwing a wad, they go,
oh yeah,
you know what that is.
Yeah, load and wad have very different meanings today compared to
right.
compared to that. Yeah, and I think that a new that added definition of load occurred probably in the late 90s. I think is when.
I think you're right.
I remember hearing that turned in there. But yeah, like it's a lot of dirty talk, it's a lot of flirtation, but then all of a sudden, as they're getting hot and heavy, they're interrupted by one of the security guards of Camp David named Collins. And we have this really funny exchange because he is telling, Mr. Phelps that he is not supposed to be in Cedar Cabin. It's off limits. And Phelps is desperately saying, like, I need the room because it's the only one without cameras after all. And
Right.
and then he reaches into his pocket. He grabs a wad of bills and he hands it to Collins. He's like, don't spend it all in one place. And this is where I was kind of like won over by the opening act and thought, okay, these guys kind of know what they're doing, because Colin scowls. He then looks down at the cash and it's a bunch of ones. So I mean, even in 78, getting handed a bunch of ones is kind of an insult, especially from a politician.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's wadded up too, which is an added insult.
Yeah, it's not even from a wallet. It's just from a pocket that is just discarded there. But we find out like Collins is a very strict by the rules type of guy. He tells them like, okay, I've been instructed to give you full access to the camp, and technically I have to oblige, but you, sir, are not supposed to be here. And so of course Collins leaves. We have this little funny joke where Walter and Lisa are trying to pick up where they left off, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I gotta stop. And the reason I gotta stop is because that crazy foreigner was spitting on me the entire time, so I've got to go take a shower. And it's like this most rude, inappropriate thing to say. But then that gets you into that, the classic system, the classic scene of, the two would-be lovers are getting close and intimate, and then all of a sudden one says, no, I'm going to clean myself up first for that. So they have the other one kind of just all alone while the other one is showering. And this creates the new tone where Elise is just kind of wandering around, and then she ends up falling into a room, or stumbling her way into a room that's got a whole bunch of security cameras on it in there, and she can see what's going on. And essentially we get this very Scream-inspired surprise where this large shadowy figure kind of approaches Elise. We don't see what he looks like or if it's a he at all, and it's making some noise, and she's of course driven by curiosity to investigate a little bit. And then she says something in Arabic that I had to translate myself because the Google Translate couldn't do it. And it essentially says, the only ones who are afraid of the noise are children and the guilty. And
see, I didn't look it up. I was wondering what that meant.
Yeah. I wanted to know for sure, because I wanted to see, could there be a joke there, or is there something of character there? And so it ended up being a little bit more on character. As she gets closer, she realizes, Phelps is no longer in the shower, and this might be a practical joke. And then the figure comes out from the dark behind her. We don't see what he looks like, but Elise screams, and she's like, oh God, please don't, all the classic stuff. Please stop. What about peace? And then then she is stabbed with the tip of a flagpole through the chest, and then the American flag kind of billows out, covered in blood. Yep. And you're like, this is very extreme. And I appreciate how well this opening act balanced the tone of horror and comedy. Like, a lot of horrors are funny, some deliberately so, and some accidentally so. And this one clearly is on the deliberate side, which allows for a lot more entertaining opportunities. And that transitions us into the opening credits. We have a B-roll of important moments in American history, drawing a line from 78 to 81, where, we've got the Camp David Accords. We have Ronald Reagan announcing his run for presidency and then, of course, George H.W. Bush doing the same thing for the primary. Then, the defeat. Bush. Yep.
Now that you bring that back up, I was surprised just to think of this, that I didn't notice it when I read it, but that's an awful lot of foreshadowing they did there.
Oh, yeah.
For the something towards the end.
Right. Well, you can tease around it a bit if you want, but
Well, there's just a video that shows all the different presidents.
Hmm.
And at the beginning there's the presidents, and then when things get really busy in the script, there's the video of the presidents.
Yes.
And so it was pretty interesting. I just
It's
put that two together now, so
well, it's a good setup, and it does come with a great payoff too. And actually, the payoff
yeah.
itself is not really a part of our spoiler threshold. So stick around towards the end of the episode because we will discuss a little bit of that because it is quite clever.
Yeah.
And so we're following kind of like the story of the 81 election, or sorry, the 80 election, with Carter being defeated in a landslide, all the discussions of the culture of that time, and then of course the assassination attempt of Ronald Reagan, his recovery at Camp David, and then Bush being interviewed about his past, including his failed run. That's just George W. Bush, the son,
Right.
about his failed run for Texas Congress and his DUI. And this takes us, and it's really well done because it sets up the Reagan family, the Bush family. It focuses more on George Jr. Then we cut to 1981. We're looking at a blank white screen and it's suddenly splattered with blood, but they ask you, is it? And we pull out and it's George's house, good old W, and it's red paint, and George, 35, is depressed, and he's trying to paint in his sunny art room, which
Right.
again is a great callback to what you know about George Bush, where when he was asked after he retired from politics, he's like, "What do you do at time?" He's like, "I got into painting."
Right, right.
And you see some of his paintings, and you're like, "Well, you've got plenty of time to get better." And this plays on it here. We see that he's painting a picture of a dog and a cowboy hat, and he's trying to do everything he can, but he can't aim. Like every time he's trying to get the brush to go where he wants it to go, it keeps splattering more red paint everywhere else, and he's getting frustrated. And he's talking to himself, and he's like, "You're a good." He's talking to the dog in his painting, like
Talking to the dog, yeah.
You're
I
a
was
good
just gonna
dog,
bring
and
that up.
you deserve a hat. Like, take it away, Dig.
No, the fact that Bush is painting, it always reminds me of different images where they'd have him with crayons, or I think Epstein has a pitched painting of him where he's playing with paper airplanes, and it reinserted in my mind the image of a buffoon. I'm thinking, yeah, this is perfect. He can't paint. He's talking to an imaginary dog that doesn't even look like a dog, and it's a good setup. And then in comes his wife, the only person in the whole story that is actually normal.
And so mildly so. Like it's
Right, right.
like she's asking like what are you doing, honey? He's like, "Oh, I'm working on finding a hobby to keep me busy." Like you said, honestly, I think it's he's talking to the dog. He's like, "I think it's good that I lost my election. Think of how much job of a job that would eat into my painting time."
Right.
And she's like, "Well, I know you'll find your passion and finish your picture of a stick elephant soon."
Yep.
And of course, it's supposed to be a dog. And Laura, just like a school teacher with a 5-year-old in art class, is like, "It sure is, but you'll figure it out."
Yep.
And
I was laughing.
I will say, like, it really, like, this writing team really did take advantage of the cultural impact of what these real life people had at the time, and then put it into a context that if you were alive, from during that period, I would say if you were 8 in year 2000 and onward, you would probably be able to get a lot of the humor that's going on here, because those 8 years were pretty intense for the world. And if only we knew how good we had it.
Right.
But every generation says that. So what's funny is, like, as they're kind of talking and about the painting, a diplomatic estate car starts pulling up to their ranch in Texas, and it's a motorcade, and George is worried that's going to be his dad, and he's like, "I can't do this right now," and
Yeah, the dad, George Sr., needed someone to fill a cabinet position,
An
and George
advisory,
losing
yeah.
the election. Yeah, George losing the election. He thought, you know what? I'm on the outs of the family. He's gonna hate me, and he's pulling up now to rub it in and give me a hard time about things or something on that order to let him know he's not the head of the kids.
Yeah, he's not the leader of the Bush clan anymore. And of course he's like saying, "Can you like please tell my dad I'm not here?" And Laura so earnestly says, "Do you really want me to lie to the vice president?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Maybe it's time you two just like kind of bury the hatchet. So face your demons is kind of like the theme here for George, and he just doesn't want to do it. And as he approaches the black Lincoln that's in front of the home, basically the backseat door opens to reveal a lanky silhouette of his father, George H.W. Bush, but steps out of the car into the sun, except it's not his actual face. It's a rubber mask of
Right.
George H.W. Bush, which remember those were going around with all the presidents had their rubber masks. Haven't seen them pop up recently in recent years, but I think maybe they stopped doing that when Obama got elected.
Yeah, Obama's the last one I saw too.
Yeah.
But Bush came out, and then Ronald Reagan mask came out.
And then a Ronald Reagan mask came out. And of course, like George looking straight at the Ronald Reagan mask, instead of acknowledging it that's a mask, he goes, "Mr. President?" As if he's fooled by it. And of course, the masks are ripped off. And who is it? Well, it's one of George's brothers, Marvin, who's like kind of dim, but always cheery. And they embrace. And then after that, you get Neil. If you know your Bushes, Neil is the creepy one.
Yep.
He's the one where people don't think he was. I remember hearing jokes, people saying like he's not a real human being. He's just a life model decoy of what happened to Neil. Like something happened to Neil, and Bush uses CIA connections to recreate his son or something. Lots of urban legends about that family. And then last but not least, the third brother in a Jimmy Carter mask trips out of the car and then vomits through it. And it's you go ahead and dig it because you'll
No, I enjoyed the beginning, but having Jeb puke in the mask, I'm thinking, oh, that is so perfect. I thought the more they humiliate that family, the better off I'm going to be with this script. And they were like retarded frat boys meeting each other. I hate to use
Yes.
that word, but gosh, they were just.
I mean,
None of them had a brain.
they were obnoxious. They were entitled. Only Neil and Marvin were somewhat drunk. What they made Jeb is a nerd who got car sick. Like he hadn't drank anything.
Right.
He just got car sick and threw up in the mask.
He was reading a book in the back. Yeah.
Well, he was reading a book. So the dynamic works really well because all of these characters are definitely framed as underdogs and pathetic, even though they're literally the children of the vice president of the United States. Like everything about their position should be in the opposite of what we're being presented here. So we got that great irony, but at the same time, there's a little bit of legitimate truth going on underneath here because Jeb Bush is the big nerd of the Bush children, like the biggest one. Neil, kind of sketchy. Marvin,
The one they forget about.
very forgettable. And then George is, the fun jock guy that, as they joked when he was campaigning, the guy you could have a beer with. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of people in America you could have a beer with. Just
Right.
doesn't really matter that's the defining thing to vote for him. But regardless, they're here because, and I will say there's an endearing.
He's bummed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know he's bummed, and
They
they
know he's
want
bummed.
to.
Yeah.
They want to have some type of, well, like the log line said, they want to have a ruckus, a bush bash, as they call it, a
Yes.
call back to their college days, so that they can whoop it up and try and cheer up their brother a little.
Well, it's a two-pronged approach because, number one, they point out that George hasn't been himself since he lost the election, and number two,
Right.
they learn that their dad is going to appoint one of his kids to the advisory position of his office, and they're worried that that position is going to divide their brotherly love and friendship, because that's the one thing they're kind of smart about is they know, like, if Dad picks one of us, that person's the favorite and the rest of us are on the outs. And so they want to have one last final hooray before that decision is made, and it divides the children. Now, what's hysterical about this premise is Laura, like, comes out, being the doting wife, and her first line is, "Are those the Bush brothers reunited at last?" And it's like, oh, that's some fun alliteration and a lot of innuendo. Just by the fact that they behave like these frat guys who, haven't been in college in, for some of them, a decade, others maybe 5-6 years. And what's even more hysterical is everybody just loves slapping Jeb Bush in the face. It's like every time he tries to do something or say something, they just interrupt him with a swift slap right across the face. So like and I don't think he's the youngest of the four, right? He's not.
No,
he's like
I think Marvin is.
I think Marvin is. So, but yet Jeb is treated like the youngest.
Yes.
But they've managed to score this great plan where they've convinced their dad to pull some strings to allow them to head out for the 4th of July weekend to Camp David, which it would never happen anyways. But that's like the best part of the premise is that, yeah, they're going to. The four Bush brothers are going to head over to Camp David, where they're just going to have a fun weekend with themselves, drinking, fishing, partying, sharing stories, one last adventure before Dad, or Poppy as George calls him, picks someone out there. Now, there's a great joke here that feels very authentic to George W. Bush. He's arguing that he's not depressed when they're talking about the election. He's like, I just couldn't win a position in the 19th Congressional District of Texas. And he says 19th. That means there are 18 districts better than that district, I think. So
yeah, that was really good.
It just feels so in line to some of the gaffes that the former president has uttered before. But we have this great premise of like, yeah, you're depressed. We feel like we lost you when you lost the election. Let us try and bring back who you are again. Because that chief advisor position is going to divide us all. It's going to happen any day now. Let's make sure we have more good memories before we start making some bad ones. And I'm like, that's a great type of motivator there. And I like the fact that even though these brothers are obnoxious and fools, there's still a heart when it comes to like their family. And that's kind of makes us like them a little bit more, even though they're people you would never want to be in a room with.
Right.
Now, what's funny here is that they don't tell George right away that they're going to Camp David. They just said, we're going to go to a fun place. But we have to get into a helicopter, then we have to get into a plane, and then into another helicopter. And so they decide to blindfold George all the way there. And I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a silly version of a way that they blindfolded him. It was just a simple blindfold. I thought it would have been funny if they had like another a hood and then a rubber mask over top of that. Just kind of really amping it up that these guys are frat boy jerks.
I would have stuck Jeb's underwear over his head, but that's just me.
No, yeah, blindfold him and Jeb.
Yeah.
Jeb's like, why are you blindfolding me? Because you'll spoil it when you find out where we're going.
Right.
But yeah, they get to the helicopter landing field. They depart. They remove George's blindfold. He's like, "Hey, George, welcome to Camp David." And he's like, "Are you insane? We're not supposed to be here."
We can't be here.
And he at first he's honored, and it's every little boy dream to be an afterthought. But he was worried that he was actually expecting to go to Maine and not to Camp David because he's got more memories in Maine. What is also funny is he still refers to himself as a Texan, yet everybody around him says, yeah, from Connecticut.
Right, the Connecticut Texan.
Connecticut Texan. And of course, now we get to meet Officer Collins, who he's now a commanding officer, and he's in his. This is where we find out like actually how old he is, because beforehand we kind of is ambiguous, but he's in his 60s. He's very distinguished. He's stiff upper lip type of guy, duty to orders, duty to country, all those types of things, and he's kind of giving them the general tour. And well, who on every tour, there's always that one know-it-all. And it won't take much for you to guess who that is in this situation.
Good old Jeb.
Good old Jeb, who interrupts Officer Collins as he's driving them through Camp David towards their cabins to let them know, it was a presidential retreat in 1938. It was named Camp David, and it came from, and then Jeb's like, President Eisenhower in 1953, because his father and grandson were both named David. Fun fact. And he's like, yeah, thank you. May I continue? It's like, oh, sorry, big fan is all. It's like, big fan of Camp David, Jeb Bush. That makes sense.
I only read 3 books about it.
Yeah. So again, this is the script is laid out in a very basic horror style formula. You've got your setup, your teaser of the first threat and murder. You then have your introduction of the world with your depressed main character who just needs to kind of have a shakeup in their life, and their friends supporting them to try and help with that shakeup, only to put them into a position where that shakeup is actually a life-threatening event. But as these 4 men get to Camp David and they start looking at the archery range, skeet shooting, bowling, etc., they're not finding it to be as fun as it could be. And so they get the bright idea to call their alumni from various universities, so like Penn, Harvard, Yale,
yeah,
to gather all the hottest co-eds they can, put them on a bus, bigger the breast the better, and bring them down to Camp David. And civilians are not supposed to be invited to Camp David.
Right.
So what's hysterical here is they know that they can't do this, so they hatch a plan to distract Officer Collins so they can get into the security control gate and open the gate for these party buses to come in. And it's really just a very basic type of plot. They get George to be the distraction because he's the one that's kind of like depressed, but he's the leader. He's the guy that used to lead the distractions while all the brothers would pull off whatever prank it was. Because he had such a charming demeanor about himself that people would just be holding on to his words, even if they were grammatically or mispronounced, grammatically incorrect or mispronounced. And the big pushback that George gives throughout this first act is he's trying to forget about politics, and they send him to Camp David, which is nothing but politics.
Right.
It's like they completely failed to read the room. And what's funny is, again, like George is dwelling on the fact that he loves Texas. He wanted to be a congressman for Texas. And the reason he knows he lost is because they all said he wasn't a real Texan. And Jeb is like, you're from Connecticut, but go on. And it's like one of the few jabs that Jeb is able to get in throughout this entire script, because Jeb is the big butt loser of the group. But Jeb is also the only one that knows how to figure out how to disable the security gates. So because Jeb has read 3 books about Camp David and is also a big nerd. So
you have to remind me, was this before or after they were skeet shooting? Because there's the little thing, it repeats itself throughout, and maybe it's minor, but I kind of hung on to it, was that with the painting, with the skeeting, later on doing some other shooting, George can't hit the target.
Right.
Something screwed up in his head. He keeps missing everything. So they were, before all the rest of the events happen, he's missing the target all the time. But
yeah,
I just
like he
wanted
can't
to throw that in there.
It's the running gag is, he cannot aim for whatever reason. So when he's skeet shooting, he's missing the skeets. When he's shooting archery, he's missing the target. When he's bowling, he's missing all the pins. It's really pretty hysterical. because his brothers are just shocked because this is the type of guy who always had a true aim. At least so they,
Yep.
or maybe they thought that, but they were inebriated at the time. So who knows for sure? But this is what is troubling George, and yes, and then we get into this part where like the only way George can get his aim back and get his life back is if, he goes to Boob Town, so to speak. They just got a bunch of hot co-eds in there. They're dancing, they're topless, maybe there's some hooking up. All this stuff that is really unbecoming of men of this age, and in my opinion, like masculine men in general.
Right.
But they make the arrangements. They use the local phones in Camp David to call up their cohorts, and they managed to arrange a 4th of July party bus with a bunch of college students, which is peculiar because college is usually out around the 4th of July, unless you've got like a summer semester program, which not unheard of, but not as common as you'd think. And so George, tasked with the distraction, goes up to Officer Collins, who's the only one on guard of the Cedar building that has all the security controls in it. And he's asking like, okay, what are your plans for the 4th of July? And Officer Collins is like, well, it's just like any other day. But, George, trying to be patriotic, is saying like, no, it's the 4th of July. So like, where do you keep the hot dogs?
Yeah.
What are you doing on the barbecue? And there is some truth to that. There is like the soldiers, protecting the camp. They are cleaning off grills and stuff, ready for the weekend's barbecue that they're going to host for themselves. We know that there's some fireworks, but they're modest right now. But as George is talking to Collins, Neil, Marvin, and Jeb sneak their way in. Of course, off Jeb's silence, trying to keep thing that there's they don't get any attention. Of course, Neil has to constantly smack Jeb across the face a few times. But
More the merrier.
it's just a running gag, and it happens in interesting moments because there'll be the serious part was like, okay, here are the security they'll be like, here are the security cameras, and Neil will say, well, wait, didn't Collins say that this area doesn't have any security cameras? And then so one of the group will ask like, wait, are you saying that the U.S. government is lying to us? But they're trying to figure out, okay, Jeb, which button controls the front gates? And he's like, well, I don't know. I barely. And then they make a joke about him like clogging all the toilets in Camp David. And of course, Jeb defends it's like, I barely ever go number 2. And when I do, it's like spaghetti. There's something wrong. But yeah, he manages to figure it out. So he's like he's being the tech guy, and he starts pointing at some buttons, but Marvin just says, screw it, and he starts clicking everything he can. He's flipping switches, he's pressing buttons, and eventually what ends up happening is that he unlocks everything in Camp David, including a secret security room somewhere hidden on the premises. And, well, now that the gates are open, they also see the buses are coming through, so they're really all happy. And, of course, Collins is quite upset because now he has to initiate a lockdown because they've been technically breached and civilians aren't allowed in there. So he's coordinating with all the other Marines and guards here to basically, get to your checkpoints, find your civilians, and we're going to escort them out of here because
Right.
he wants to do this. But while Officer Collins is trying to do this, George is still maintaining the distraction, and he opens it up with like, I wanted to go to Vietnam, I really did, but they honorably discharged me. You should have seen me. I had honorable discharge coming out of every hole. So again, like good jokes, kind of playing off of those things. But because of this open, like the open gates and everything, a large figure has emerged from some sort of secret room and is lumbering through the compound. And we don't get to see who it is, but what we do see is that a flagpole with a gold spike is ripped out of its roots or its base,
Yeah.
and is used to skewer a series of Marines, and then these Marines are held over the barbecue where they are then barbecued with grill marks and everything. And it's your first looming threat that is now going to be wandering the entire grounds. And Camp David is not just it's like a camp compound. So you got a bunch of cottages all sparsed around. You're surrounded by forest, but you're also surrounded by main gates, and there's lots of nature. So there's plenty of room to hide, but also plenty of room to have your typical college bush party. And
Right.
and of course, when Officer Collins is realizing that he can't get into contact with some of his other people, he's like, okay, we've got a code red. We have to immediately get everything done. All units have to mobilize. They have a place called the Hen's Nest, which we don't know what that is exactly, but we might have an idea of that later on in the script. And while the Marines are panicking, or at least conducting themselves more seriously about the situation they're in, all of these college kids are just piling.
That's when the Bushes go to the buses and they start raiding everybody as they come off.
Oh yeah, like all the girls.
They get disturbed about the guys, but the girls, oh, she's an 8, she's a 9, she's a 0. What? Oh,
and
lo and behold, it's their little sister.
It's their little sister Doro, the only Bush that can never make a friend. And they rate her a 3, and then they realize who it is. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But now they're trying to figure, like, well, how the heck did you make it out here? Like, this was a secret. And she's like, I have women's intuition. I know when my brothers are trying to, BS me. And what's funny is, like, Marvin somehow communicated to her that he specifically told her that she wasn't invited. And you have that sister dynamic. Like, you always pick on me, you always leave me out of things, and I'm never allowed to hang out with the boys, and all of that type of stuff. But then she says, but joke's on you, I have a friend, and you invited her, and then she invited me.
Right.
And oh gosh, I'm forgetting the friend's name, but it's this gorgeous
Violet.
Violet, right? Yeah, the gorgeous blonde named Violet, who is easily enamored by George. Like, she's infatuated with George, but she holds it back a great deal. And George has kind of got a little thing for her too. And they kind of hit it off during a game of beer pong, because she's beating everybody that is playing against her. And of course, Neil's getting embarrassed by this, so he's like, "Hey, George, come on up. You're like the beer pong champion. Go, kick this girl's ass."
Right.
And
this is where we see that he cannot aim anymore. He used to be a pro at it, and he loses, just starts drinking everything.
Pretty much. And the funny part is, he jokes about, like, the real winner is the one who drinks the most.
You're right.
But the other part too is, like, as George is getting drunker, he's kind of coming back to his old self. And then while this is happening, Neil is freaking everybody out, because he's pretty much doing like the Gary Busey thing from Lethal Weapon, where he's holding his forearm over a flame, but this time it's just he's putting his hand inside of a campfire. and the girls are timing him, and he's like, see, 40 seconds. My heart rate never gets above 70 beats per minute. I can barely feel pain. Physical pain, that is. And, of course, this girl who's timing him says, like, can you feel emotional pain? He's like, good question. Also, no. Pay up. And the creepy part is, like, he holds out his blistered, burnt hand to collect the money. So everybody has to, like, squirm as they're handing over their bet. And at this time, like, when George is kind of getting back into his groove, Neil is freaking people out, and Jeb is trying to, like, clean up the lodge around him. This big burly figure is wandering around and ends up picking up the Ronald Reagan rubber mask that had been discarded on the ground, and wears that as it moves through the campgrounds and forest. And while the night's kind of coming down, you get that campfire moment between George and Violet, where they're just kind of talking, and George is, complaining about his dad and how he feels like he lets him down and how he's like kind of like the embarrassment. And then you have this really weird joke where George is like, I don't understand, like, why are you friends with my sister Doro? And Violet responds, and I quote, Doro is the only person I've ever seen tie a cherry stem in a knot with her thighs.
Yeah, I go, wait a second.
I had to process that for a minute. And that just was weird.
Yeah, it was very weird.
But while she's talking about Doro, and she basically calls out the Bush boys for being, very entitled, spoiled brats. And, maybe if you understood the level of responsibility you had and your family has, you would be, more liked. And maybe, George, you would have won that election that's been keeping you down. And it gives something for George to think about, because even though it pulls him away from being like, hip fun George that his brothers want him to be, kind of gets him back to his overall point, which is it's not even enough that he lost the election. He also feels like he let his father down, and that he's not the man that his dad expects of him, which might be entirely true.
Violet plays a couple of times when George, if I think the first time it's kind of hinted at, or there's a little line about him trying to ask about her, she diverts and
quickly
says, well, yeah, we can do, you don't have to worry about those rules. You could be whoever you want. You don't have to worry about being married. You could do whatever you want. It just kept distracting him with, stop worrying about things and just be who you want to be.
Pretty much. I mean, I liked how she says, sometimes maybe the best person to be the president is the one who doesn't want the job.
Oh yeah, that was a good line too.
And it is a really good line, because it talks about what the actual responsibility is, what it entails, and the vulnerabilities that you can be put at for pursuing such a thing. But what I liked about this conversation is that Violet calls out George for having a tan on his wedding finger because he had taken off his ring, and then he kind of comes to terms with the fact that, like, I'm married, my wife's pregnant, I'm a bad man. And Violet's trying to not really seduce him, but kind of give him permission, being like, listen, at least you're honest about that.
Right.
And they I like how, for this part of the script, they do tease that these two are going to like kiss a few times, and I only think they kiss once before they are getting interrupted. Right. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember what the first interruption was.
I think the first interruption was Jeb, because as he's cleaning one of the
that's
one of the rooms, he finds an old. Oh God, what it was?
Top secret file hidden in the bookcase.
Oh yeah, top secret file hidden in the bookcase that's very redacted, and he brings it to the campsite, and he starts reading it out, and of course they're reading with the redactions.
So they play Mad Libs with it.
So they essentially play Mad Libs with it. He's like, according to official records, on the night of Redacted, Walter Phelps and Redacted were seen entering the Redacted. And then the body of Redacted was never found. Phelps has been redacted since the night of Redacted. I mean, it's pretty funny, because then they go into the Mad Libs part, and it's really just butt and ass and all those types of silly words. Yeah,
juvenile stuff.
all the things that, an immature teenager would say. But again, just like with your typical horror part, as this is happening, some teenagers are being picked off. Now, Neil is getting really upset because there's way more college guys at the party than he expected. Well, and he only expected them. So he's like, I don't like this competition. And then he sees this young couple, a guy and a girl, kind of making out hot and heavy and then wandering off. And he catches up to them and he's like, hey, would you guys mind a threesome? And they're like, no, we're good. And he's like, oh, okay. Just disappointed and kicks the dirt and walks away. And then what's funny is like as he's walking away, he stops for a moment and then he thinks, and then he turns around and just starts to follow them again. And then we cut to them. They found a little spot and they're going at it. And as they're doing so, there's this joke where the guy says, he's about to finish, and she's like, "Oh, pull out." He's like, "Oh, I'm not done, but I'm not done yet."
No, I will when I'm done.
I will when I'm done. And then of course this person, this big thing, penetrates
with the
flagpole and kills both of them. And we don't know what happens to the guy. He's missing, but the woman's laying there dead. And Neil catches up, and of course he calls up. He's like, "Hey guys, hope I'm not interrupting. I changed my mind about the threesome. I'm cool just to watch."
Right.
And then he realizes like the couple's dead, and he's freaking out. And of course he runs to his brothers and he's like, "Hey, we got a problem here. We got emergency. We have to call a Bush family meeting." And he shows them the two bodies, and they don't know what's going on. And of course Doro is assuming that Neil's the one that killed them because there may or may not have been an incident.
There was a lot of innuendo with that, and then another one that would bring up a little bit later about this isn't uncommon with him.
There's some sort of running theme with Neil.
Right.
Excuse me. But they decide, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get some blankets. We're going to cover up the bodies. We're going to do a quick grave out in the middle of the forest where no one will find them. So it's an awkward situation. They're dragging the bodies out. They start digging the quick grave. They throw the boy. Yeah, they did find the guy. So they throw him in first. Then they throw the woman on top and they start burying it over. But they don't have enough dirt. So the woman's perfect breasts are protruding out of the dirt like they're stones or plants. And they don't know how to fix it. And I can see the visual. It'd be quite hysterical because that's not something that you expected to see in the woods.
Right.
And and so what's peculiar about this part here is they're just little vignettes of horror and kills happening around, and then the bush is kind of caught in the middle. And while they're trying
Doesn't Valerie step in? I'm trying to remember. She steps in and says, "Wait, you guys act like this is something you've done before."
Oh yes, yeah. Violet does say that. It's like, you guys are really well coordinated. And they do not answer it. But as they're trying to figure out a way to cover up the rest of this body, fireworks begin, and they're big fireworks, and they're lighting up everything, and they're freaking out. It's like, why did we have to come here on the 4th of July? It's like, guys, we are the reason everybody is here. If we didn't come out here, none of this would happen. We are the reason. George is making the joke, why it have to be 4th of July? But then he comes to the realization, it's our fault. Everything that's going on here is our fault. And we see that the person that's lighting these fireworks is a girl in an American flag bikini. And with every new launch of fireworks, the dark figure in the Reagan mask is closing in on her from behind, and eventually grabs her, puts her hand over his mouth, drags her off, and she's stabbed and hoisted up on the flagpole in the middle of Camp David like she was the flag.
In the meantime, we still don't know where all these Marines are. They don't even show up.
They don't show up
until later.
They don't show up, and it takes a good while. After the Bushes see the flag girl billowing off the side of the flagpole, where they start realizing, well, where's Officer Collins? Where's the other Marines? Where are those soldiers? We got to go find them. We got to get them to help.
Get everyone out of here. And as they're moving around, they realize, oh, the whole compound's on lockdown again. So we
we need to find a way to get out. And so they have to first gather everybody and then start coming up with a plan. And they get interrupted because the person in the Ronald Reagan mask with his flagpole starts coming after the bushes.
Yep.
And this
they
is
decided to divide up at this point too, wasn't it? Where Jeb was supposed to go open the gates again. George and Val.
So they're about to divide up, but they're only dividing up after their first encounter with the Ronald Reagan mask guy, because the guy with the Ronald Reagan mask manages to clip Jeb in the calf, taking out a chunk of his calf. But they managed to get away, and they managed to kind of like hide from him. And because Jeb is injured, he's the one that's in charge of driving the bus to try and penetrate the gate. So they throw him into the bus. He drives it. It hits the gate. The gate doesn't budge because it's a very, very sturdy gate. The bus kind of just crashes. And Jeb, of course, is complaining that now he has whiplash. And they don't know how to get anyone out there. But then Jeb reminds everybody, like, well, there's supposed to be a secret hidden bunker there. What if we just like get everybody into that bunker and we hide until, the authorities come? Because if the place has been locked down, the government's going to know about it. They're going to send in the National Guard or somebody. So this is where Jeb and the Bushes all split up to try and get each of the responsibilities. Right. So I think it's Neil and Marvin have to gather everybody. George and Violet end up going to get weapons. Doro, I can't remember what Doro is supposed to do, but Jeb was tasked with finding the bunker, and he's the only one that goes alone. Maybe Doro joins Marvin and Neil. I can't remember on that part but yeah, Jeb is the one that's told to go. Too. Jeb is the one assigned to go alone. and okay,
that's where they also pick on Doro too, is where she makes the plan. She says, we need to do this, need to alert the guards, you got to go get the weapons and this and that, and they dismiss her. And
then Neil just repeats the plan. Yeah.
Right. Good plan, Neil.
Oh wait, now I remember, because I got a little note here. So Neil and Marvin and Doro have to are trying to contact the police or contact the authorities. So they go into the Cedar House to get on the phone. And so first you have Marvin calls 911 and says, "Hey, we're the son of George W. Bush, the vice president. You got to send an army here at Camp David." And then someone immediately disconnects on the other end of the line.
They think they're pranking, yeah.
Yeah. So every time they're called, they think they're pranking. Doro then picks up the phone and she says, like, she does she starts crying on the phone, and she manages to convince the operator that they need help. And they say, okay, they're sending someone on the way. And we find out that on the other end of the line is not the police dispatch, but it's actually some sort of shadowy figure in some sort of shadowy room. And they're like, yep, the asset's been compromised. Mobilize our forces. We're going to Camp David type of thing. And of course, George and Violet are making their way to one of the Marine barracks, hoping to find some weapons there. And Jeb has determined that, yes, the lockdown is fully initiated. There's nothing that they can do, but I'm going to look at the map to try and see if I can find this bunker, because all the houses are in this location, but and from one book that he read, but when they were driving around on the tour, one of the houses was not where it's supposed to be. So I think I can figure out where the secret bunker is. And as he's wandering around the Aspen Lodge, he's going through the two, like the yard between the two places, and he ends up just dropping in the middle, like he's like through a trap door or something, and just falls. And he lands hard, and now both his legs are bleeding. And as he kind of makes his way deeper through this narrow tunnel, it opens up into a 1-to-1 replica of the Oval Office. And this is the bunker. And it's like really like something to behold. Jeb is freaking out because he feels like he's in the White House. We cut away from him to George and Violet, who they've kind of geared up Rambo style with shotguns and handguns, and
She gave him the shotgun because he can't aim.
Yes, she gave him the shotgun because he can't aim. And as they're kind of making their way back, they encounter, the person in the Ronald Reagan mask, and they open fire. And even with George in the shotgun, he is missing the guy completely. But Violet kind of like riddles this this dude in the Reagan mask with bullets, and he drops down, only to get up again. And we realize, oh my gosh, he's bulletproof. But George gets the bright idea. He grabs a firework, and he launches it at the feet of this guy in the Reagan mask, and then shoots it with the shotgun. Manages to hit it, and it sets the guy on the Reagan mask on fire. And so he's like panicking and running around, and dashes off. And they're like, oh, maybe we got him. It looks like we did. And it's not necessarily a hero's victory, but now their next plot is, okay, well, we got to find out where Jeb is. As they make their way around the compound, they bump back into Marvin, Neil, and Doro, and they're like, yep, the authorities are on their way, but we have to figure out where Jeb went. And I can't remember if they did it through...
Well, that's when they go back. There's a cut into where Jeb is,
right?
Because the guy, they thought they killed him at first when he was on fire, but then he got up and they said, "Oh, he's invincible."
Yes.
And so he ran off, and then they did this where they got up with the others. But then they cut to where Jeb is searching this bunker, and it has several different routes where they can go from where this main replica of the Oval Office is, and he notices he found where the Marines are.
Right. Oh, yeah, and inside the Oval Office bunker, he found all the Marines have been killed, except for Officer Collins, who's barely alive, but he's there. And he's looking around because at this point, they think that Walter Phelps might be the killer, because he's the only name they've heard of about the redacted story, and they think that maybe all the stuff that he had done has caused the federal government to kind of keep a tight lid on it. And that goes into a montage where, not an actual montage, but like a reference montage where they're naming off various politicians that could all fit the description of what Phelps has done over his career, from sexual misconduct to money laundering to drugs, you name it. Trying to narrow down who the politician could be was difficult for them until they got to Phelps, because he's the only one that's named in that redacted document that they found on the site. But Jeb realizes realizes that there's something going on here, and then Collins is telling him, like, listen, man, this is the second time this has happened. I'm sworn to protect this camp and to protect America. And it doesn't matter that you're the vice president's son. You've got to go. And he stabs Jeb Bush right in the shoulder.
and leaves the knife in.
And then Jeb and Officer Collins, who is like clinging on to life just because of his an ordeal with the Ronald Reagan mask guy, are kind of having like the most lamest of fights in this bunker, until Jeb manages to get a chokehold from behind onto Collins, and he's crying as he is suffocating him to death. and Jeb doesn't know what to do after he's killed Collins, but he kind of makes his way back to the Oval Office, and he sits at the president's desk, and he realizes that he's never going to be president of the United States after what he'd just done, and he starts sobbing, and then he hears something coming into the Oval Office, and he decides to immediately like lean back in the chair and play dead. And he keeps his eyes like slightly open where he can see a horribly burned giant being with a Ronald Reagan rubber mask on saunter through. He pushes on a portrait of Ronald Reagan, I think it was, and it opens up a secret room, and there's just skeletons and bodies piled on top of each other, and they're all wearing presidential like suits. So he's grabbing the suits to try, and the jackets, trying to see which ones fit. None of them fit. He gets upset, like, and he starts wailing gibberish, makes his way back into the Oval Office, sees one guy in a suit that looks like it fits him. He takes the jacket off, he puts it on, it fits him. You find out that this guy's body has like horrible scars and cuts and his wounds of all sorts all over his body, as if he's gone through various stages of hell. But he ends up kind of dressing back up again, and ends up noticing that Jeb Bush is not as dead as he was pretending, and then grabs Jeb and just kind of drags him off into the darkness. And that's the last we see of Jeb.
Well, he stabbed him several times before he took him off, and so
right.
Jeb is dead.
Yeah, so Jeb is pretty much dead at this point. And the rest of the Bush clan are making their way through the camp, and I think Neil's the one that makes this name. I think it's Neil that says this, and I gotta find it for sure because it is a very funny, a funny quote. Let's just see here. Got to keep going. Oh boy, it's a few pages in.
I can't recall the line that you're thinking of.
Well, Neil is saying like, I smell fear and pee, so it must be Jeb, something of that nature.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that leads, and he follows that sentence, leads him into the Oval Office bunker. And as they're sneaking in, they hear an audio track of some sort of some sort of narrator. That is saying like, this is what you're made for. This is what you're made for. And it's really like kind of disturbing. But as they get closer and closer to it, they see that this giant creature is watching a recorded tape of all the presidents. And this is what was set up that you mentioned earlier at the start of the show, set up with like, the Ronald Reagan going to announcing his presidency and the primary and then being inaugurated. This is the line. Neil says, "Smells like file folders and pants piss. Jeb's been here."
Yep.
That's what he says.
Well, another thing about that bunker too that kind of goes along with this, because he's watching this video, and for me, I picture like a little 2-year-old watching Saturday morning cartoons, real excited, jumping up and down. But in the Oval Office is not all the memorabilia, but there's memorabilia of each president.
Yeah, they
like
got
George Washington's teeth, the axe. Was it Washington's axe?
Washington's axe, Abraham Lincoln's hat, and the spike he used during the railway.
Yes, those are a little bit important.
And that's when, and as they're like watching this creature with the Reagan mask, watching this video, the Reagan mask ends. They're trying to keep quiet until Marvin smells some spoiled food and then starts gagging, making a noise. And so that is when this guy in the Ronald Reagan mask kind of comes up and starts to attack him. And I'm not going to spoil how they managed to get away, but we are going to reveal a little bit of like the conspiracy behind this creature, because so this creature is a product of the federal government, where they have taken the DNA of like all the greatest presidents and mixed them together to create what they were hoping to be the perfect president of the United States. One that is also happens to be bulletproof because too many of them have been shot. So
he was watching a video that was saying, "This is what you're made of. This is who you are." And the guy was all excited because, yes, I'm the best president. I'm David. I'm the best president.
Yes, his name is David. Which also makes me laugh a little bit, because I'm wondering, is that a throwback to the Zemeckis film Dave, where what's his name, Klein, plays the double of the president who poses as the president?
I don't know that one. I'm sorry.
He's Phoebe Cates' husband. I keep forgetting his name.
But it's also Camp David too. So
yes, it's Kevin Kline. That's the name. Keep forgetting that. But yeah, he's in the movie called Dave, and of course, he's the guy that pretends to be the president. So I'm wondering if that's a double entendre where they kept on playing everything in there because it's Camp David, it's named David. We have David as a common thing. There's never been a President David, though.
Right.
So playing into that part. But it has that nice payoff of like how this, the big monster antagonist villain of this film functions. It's like a Jason Voorhees, a Michael Myers type. Maybe even a little bit of Sloth from the Goonies. But
I didn't think of that, but you're right. Yeah.
But it has, I will say, like it hits all the tropes comedically for a horror film, but it has so much levity, and it's written with a bit of earnest to it, that it's alarmingly better than it has any right to be.
Yes. I think if they had picked a different family too, it probably wouldn't have been as good. But since it's the Bushes and they make such good fun of them, at least in my book, I thought that was a good setup.
Yeah, because what it does is it takes the colloquial understanding of the family, if you grew up around the time where they were really like heavy political players, and it really leans into the flaws we publicly know, the embellishments of how those flaws could work out in a story of this type. They also line it up perfectly with the archetypes of their roles as it pertains to a horror film of this type as well. It's because you got the reluctant leader, you got the arrogant best friend, you got the nerdy best friend, and you got the really dumb best friend. You then got the one girl that's always annoying but is kind of always right and really smart, and then you got the potential love interest. So you have all those characters are in their dynamic. You then have the authority figure that is of the ground. So like that's either the camp counselor or the camp leader in one regard. And then there's also the added aspect of the conspiracy. Like, what's the legend behind it? Like, how the townsfolk know about Freddy Krueger and what really happened behind there, but all the kids and some of the teachers don't really know what the story is. They're just victims of his chaos. So, I thought it like these two writers definitely knew the genres they were writing in, and definitely knew how to parse it with these characters. So I'm a little surprised that it was rated so far down the list, given the cleverness that this script has all the way through.
My only guess is that there's some impartiality missing because it's the Bush family.
It is. What is fascinating about it is that it's the only politics of it is regarding the Bush family. Like, there's no left or right leaning politics at all in this area. It's just the idea of a political climate, which I think is to its benefit because it doesn't preach anything other. And George has this arc. He is he's wallowing in defeat. He has to rise to the occasion, and the only way he can survive is if he can become the man he is destined to be, which is someone who knows how to get back up after they've been knocked down, which is a classic for this genre and for most stories as well. It's like, we want our hero to be in one position, enter a new world, be challenged of that, get knocked down, and then make a determination. Do they stay down or do they rise to the occasion? And typically we like the stories where they rise to the occasion, and if they pull it off, it's great. And if they pull it off but at the expense of their own life, well, they've provided meaning for the life that they had up until that point. That's the Armageddon thing with Bruce Willis's character. So we tend to like these stories, and
yeah, and it was reminiscent of one that we did very early on. I can't remember if it was summer camp or what have you. I don't remember the exact name, but it was a camp full of kids and the dad. And
that was Chaperone, right?
Chaperone, yeah.
Yes, that was a good one.
Where
too.
it's a very similar type of format where it matches, the growth of the lead characters.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say this is kind of right in that wheelhouse here. So, before we get to the final voting, which I'm pretty sure people know where we're coming from in this, do you have any kind of final thoughts or notes on this
On
script?
the negative side, there's a couple things. I think some of the jokes could have been a little different.
Hmm.
The thing like where with the where they put the mask on, that type of thing. A little bit of the travel jokes could have been in there
Hmm.
that we talked about at the beginning, where they could have put a blindfold on Jeb too. But there were some, and I'm just being very nitpicky. Is some of the spelling errors, words that were reused wrong or missed text wise. And I
Yeah.
can't hold it too much against him because usually my first proof is that way. But if you're going to present it to a producer or something, I would think that you would have to have it more polished. So I would say that would definitely need to be in there.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of spelling mistakes as well. Usually, these are the types of mistakes that you get when you're typing too fast and you miss the key or
Yes.
something. These are not like very obvious ones where the person just didn't know how to spell and wung it.
Right. And the story's congruent. There's
Yeah.
no editing things where this character said something but you attribute it to another character towards the end. It was all done fine that way. But like I said, it was just a little nitpick thing.
Yeah, it was. So, with that being said, Adega, how would you rate this script? A green light or a pass?
It's a green light for me. It wouldn't be something I've seen because I don't like seeing the nudity,
Right.
but I imagine there's a lot of people that do, and the way the situations are out in this story, it just makes it hilarious. A bush bash. Well, there's three things we need for a bush bash: bush, bush, and bush beer, bush, and bush. And then he points to one lady with the bikini that's a little less than
Untrimmed.
covering, and says, "You know what I'm talking about." So
Yeah.
I think for the right crowd, I green light. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say in this type of context, I'm fine with the nudity because it's not done as a form of sexualization. It's basically the bait and switch. Like, oh, naked woman. Oh my God, she's already killed. you know,
Right. Right.
it's not there to. It's not there for the other reasons that you'd think it'd be there for. But I'm in agreement with you. I think this would be a great green light. Biggest hampering I can see to it is getting the cast that could do this, because as we were talking in the
True.
green room, there are actors from 20 years ago that could have nailed these roles, some of which are Saturday Night Live alumni, and it would go over great. But again, I would say that's one of the hang-ups for this script is that as clever as it is, it feels like it's a decade too late, time-wise.
Yeah.
Like it's
And
outside
if
the
it was,
window of cultural relevancy.
when was this actually submitted? Was this
2024.
last year?
Yep, 2024.
Okay. Because it's at the, Hollywood is still troubled with some of these woke ideas, and to have a camp full of bikinis, I think that may have thrown them off too. Because a lot of them are looking at college differently than what it used to be.
Yes.
So that may have been part of the issue of why it was rejected. I don't know.
I don't know either, because I would think that the type of producers that maybe be of that mindset would probably enjoy this, because the people that they hate are the ones that are getting slaughtered by this Ronald Reagan creature. So you'd wonder if there'd be
That's
some sort
true.
of Schadenfreude in there or something. No, I think it comes down to that maybe the people reading this are too young to remember the Bush years and not be in on the joke. And I do know that a number of the producers that contribute to the blacklist are between the ages of 25 and 32. So they would have barely been alive and cognizant of what was going on when George W. Bush took office, or even know anything about his father when he was president during the late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, there's definitely some things. I think culturally, for a section of Hollywood, in this regard, they don't get the joke.
Yes.
It's
I,
literally a definition of you had to have been there.
yeah. Yeah.
But and that goes to my point where, like, yeah, this is kind of like a decade too late, and it makes me wonder, but this is such a clever idea, because it's you put comedy with horror, and then you throw in a cultural reference to the 43rd president of the United States. and uh and it's way, again, as I said earlier, it has no right to be this good. It is not like the comedy that will change comedies, or like a Tropic Thunder or anything like that. It is a solid, like, B plus tier comedy
Right.
that you could see on a 4th of July holiday weekend, but it would most likely have been released in January. And
Right.
a couple of, like, it'd be like when Megan or Cocaine Bear came out. But I think it would have a better reception than Cocaine Bear, because that premise was way better than the execution of the script. This one, I would say the premise and the execution are pretty much hand in hand. There's no illusion or delusion about what they're trying to do here. They had a goal in mind, and they're making fun of everything they can. They're making fun of government conspiracies. They're making fun of other politicians, regardless of party. They're making fun of the Bush family. They're making fun of college kids, and Ivy League college kids. They're making fun of nerds. The torture that they put Jeb Bush through, and how he keeps on
Right.
kind of fighting through, is hysterical. All the way.
And the mindset, I think it Neil when they were hiding in the bowling alley, and he's I can't remember which one it was, but they were talking about drawing dick pics on a bowling ball, and
Oh, yeah.
balls. And I mean, I mentally went to Beavis and Butthead,
Yeah.
balls.
Yeah, just that level
little
of
things were
immaturity.
right
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah, and so I think it was pretty. Yeah, I think it was just that pretty cool. Like, just how they kind of worked on it. But yeah, I would give this a green light as well. It's definitely got it'd definitely be something I'd like to see executed. Heck, even if they were to, like, pull out of mothballs, Will Ferrell, Dana Carvey, Chris Parnell, and such, just to play these characters, pretending to be like they're young but they're old guys. It would be a nice throwback. I think the people over 30 would really dig it, but yeah, I don't think it would resonate exactly as well for any of the under 30 crowd. But then again, the people over 30 are the ones with slightly more money that would be interested in renting or buying something like this. So I think it would go over somewhat well that way.
Yeah, but I think you do have a point. That's probably the biggest drawback, is just a little dated. The 10-year mark that you said, you're probably right on the money with that.
Yeah, like if this were to come out in 2016, it's only 8 years out after Bush. So yeah, there's enough fresh memory for the cultural audience to understand what's going on there and connect stronger with the joke. Now that it is, 12 years out-ish, give or take, its generation gaps are a lot shorter now. They used to be around 25 years. Now they're about 10. So they're getting closer and closer to the generation time frame between computer processors. Like, eventually it's going to be 18 months apart. It's going to be the next generation, because that's how different society is going to be, or changing so quickly. But yeah, I still think, like, this is, at the very least, this is a great writing sample of people that understood comedy and are able to keep it broad enough that it's not agendicized. to make up a word here, go do a Bushism here.
Right.
It's just not. Its narrative is got a great message, which is, no matter how much the world pushes you down, you gotta push back. Now, you can make it as a joke where no matter how much the world pushes you down, you as a Bush have to Bush back. Just to throw in, like, what the attitude of the Bush family is, what is presented in this script. So I would say, like, yeah, these two, if I had a comedy idea and I needed to put it as an assignment, I would likely reach out to Megan Amram and Joseph Carnegie and say, "Hey, give me your take on this, and let's see how we can do this."
I agree. Completely agree.
All right. So checking in with our wonderful Patreons over on the Patreon. They have voted 100% to greenlight Camp David. No comments, but again, if you are listening on the Patreon side of things and you have checked out the script and voted for it, please share any thoughts you might have in the comments. We'll be happy to read them out on the show and discuss it further. It's always fun to get those additional perspectives from you guys out there. Over on the live side of things, we have a 75% of the listening audience voted to greenlight, 25% to pass. That's I would say that's a good metric with regards to the quality of the script and our conversation about it. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating in that. Yeah. So before we wrap it up, Adega, any last thoughts we want to get out there?
No, I just thank you again for having me. You're very kind to me almost every single time I've gotten a winner, so I appreciate it.
We'll just chalk it up to you being a good luck charm there.
But no, I'm all good. Just thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to have you by, and we'll get you back again real soon when your schedule allows for it. I want to thank everyone listening live. I want to thank the wonderful Darren M. for moderating the live chat. We really appreciate that. Next week, we'll be back again with another script. It's not a comedy as far as I can understand it, but it does have a type of wilderness aspect of it, and it's titled Toluca Lake. So we're going to check that out next time. And I want to thank everyone for hanging out this weekend. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. And never forget, guys, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.